Awesome. All right, so let's get started. To begin, just a quick introduction for those who are new here. So I used to work at Google quite many moons ago. And after leaving the company, I founded my own ad agency, Ajala Digital. And in the last like 10, 11 years, I've actually set up, managed, and optimized over 3,000 ad accounts across Google and Facebook ads. And so this is literally a decade of working with ads day in, day out. I cannot think of even a day that I did not think of, dream of, work with ads. And we've ran campaigns in more than 10 languages all across the world. So there are pretty much almost no businesses that we haven't seen and we haven't run ads for. And all the tips and tricks that you're getting today in this workshop are tried, tested, practiced, refined over time, and the latest knowledge in terms of what's going on right now. Now, what you will discover in the next 3 hours. So firstly, we're going to look into fine-tuning your brand messaging. We're going to look into how to leverage social proof for better conversions. We're going to look into AI-assisted ad copy creation because, of course, AI is a big topic, and I want you to work efficiently with everything that you have. And of course, we're going to look into the most important campaign structure, campaign optimization, management, in a way that it works for you and not that you work for the campaigns. All right. Now, just in quick summary, the agenda. We're going to start off with the very basics because what I found in most instances where people try to get ads to work or they weren't sure if they can get ads to work, there was always something missing at the very bottom of the funnel. How was the messaging being done? Are the right people being targeted? So we're going to make sure that this is really on point before you scale or spend any more money on ads. Then secondly, we'll look into effective AI prompting techniques. So this is quite some advanced stuff here that I'll share with you. I'll teach you. I'll let you try out. And then hopefully you can apply that in your campaigns as well, live, of course. Then we'll talk about the power of testimonials and why that is so important, why you need to get them, how you get them, what is important, what kinds of testimonials there are, and how to incorporate them in your ads. Then, of course, high converting landing page best practices. What do you do when people aren't converting from your ads? Where are they getting on your landing page? What's not working there? So we're going to look into those details as well. And of course, we're going to look into winning meta campaign structures and audiences. So how does a good meta campaign actually look like? What are the must-haves? What are the must-dos? And of course, audiences, how do you select them? How big should they be? How many should you use? Which one should you use? So we're going to cover all that. And then, of course, we'll talk about campaign optimization and best practices. So how do you keep managing and optimizing your campaign without consuming your time and in a way that you can scale it beyond a certain budget as well? A lot of people hit ceilings at one point, and so we'll look into how to pretty much not hit that ceiling and keep scaling for your business and business type, right? So let's look into the first aspect, creating clarity that converts. Why do people actually buy from you, right? And one mistake I keep seeing business owners make in the beginning is they're too broad. So just yesterday, I talked with a business owner who told me, oh, well, technically, everybody would be my customer. But that's never true. No matter what you buy, even if it's milk in a supermarket, it's never everybody who's the customer, right? So instead of keeping it very generic where we're saying, oh, we offer top quality services for all your business needs, or we've helped many clients achieve success with innovative solutions, contact us, learn more. This is way too vague, right? So we're going to understand how to make it really specific so that your target audience feels like you understand them better then they understand their own problems, right? And so clear messaging is where you tell people exactly what they get, what are the results they can achieve, and what exactly they're going to solve, right? And who it is for, right? Now, why is this so important? Your message can make or break your ads, right? There's this 3-second attention rule. Some people are saying it's getting less than that, even more towards like 1.5 and 2 seconds. But if you optimize for 3 seconds, that's still pretty okay and pretty good. So what happens within the first 3 seconds? In the first 3 seconds, my eyes pretty much scan what this is about. We look for colors, we look for certain letters, words, and so on. And if our brain doesn't deem that it's relevant, we move on, right? So that decision is made extremely quickly. So the clearer your messaging is, the better your customer retention, the better your conversion is, and of course, the better your ads perform. And this is something that, of course, goes beyond Facebook ads, right? This is something you can extend to your Instagram, TikTok, to your website. So quite a lot of aspects that we'll discuss here. You'll see that they're not just applicable for Facebook ads, for any kind of online platform. They're applicable for your broader business as well, right? Now, the other thing is that confused prospects don't convert, right? So I often see a lot of people come up with very blurry and very broad messaging. So for example, and I'm guilty as charged, so I used the 2 in the beginning where I said, unlock XYZ, or become more efficient, or level up, right? But we really want to be more specific than that. We want to use words that actually tell me what am I going to do next, right? So, and I'll dive into why saying contact us or learn more may not be the best fitting option here. Now, getting into why people buy from you. So they don't buy products, they typically buy emotions, solutions to problems. They buy better versions of themselves. They buy status and identity. They buy peace of mind. And when you look through these, think about it for a second for yourself. Like, what do people really buy from you? If you look into what you're currently selling or distributing or promoting, most likely your customers are purchasing one of these 4 options, right? And if you have pen and paper, feel free to write that down. But most importantly here is people do not buy a product or service directly. They buy an experience. They buy a certain emotion that they get, right? So in terms of, for example, cosmetics, I don't buy a facial cream. I buy a cream that helps me look younger, look better in meetings, look more refreshed, makes my skin feel better, makes my skin look better, right? So if we focus our messaging on those aspects and those results, typically we'll see conversions increase pretty quickly. Now, let's chat a little bit about pain points, right? And this is already the first exercise. So in the worksheet, list about 3 to 5 specific problems that your ideal customer faces. So I'll give you a little bit of time right now to write that down. Could it be that they don't feel confident enough? Could it be that they don't have enough money? Could it be that they work too much? Could it be that they're having difficulty finding the love of their lives? Do they not like their body, right? whatever it is, write it down. All right. So once you've listed your specific problems, I'd like you to rate them by urgency, right? With 5 being the most urgent and 1 just being, I can live with this. If it's not being sorted right now, I'm okay, right? So just go ahead and rate them by urgency. Now, next, I'd like you to rate them by emotional impact. So, how severe of an emotional impact does this have for me if I do not solve this problem, right? If I do not lose weight, what problem will that give me later on in life? Will I get sick? Will I have to take meds? Will I lose out on opportunities? What is it of an emotional impact that I perceive that this problem may have from you? In this case, that your customer might have, right? And note that this perception is different for each customer group that you work with, right? If I keep being unhappy with the way my skin looks like or feels like, what emotional impact does it have? Am I going to keep being frustrated? Am I going to keep being sad? Am I going to keep being bothered by it, distracted even by it, right? A lot of times the problems that we have also distract us from our work, from forming relationships, from showing up confidently, right? So feel free to go all in on the emotional impact here as perceived by you and for your ideal customer. All right, once you've done that, we're just going to keep it where it is. And we'll continue with the hell and heaven worksheet that you have. Now, I've learned about this concept probably a good 10 years ago, and it absolutely changed not just how we do business, how we help our clients, how they succeed with ads, but it overall is a game changer in life if you are at any point in time selling something. The point is that people rarely buy a product for a certain price, right? They buy something in order to either get away from something or to get towards something. So I either want to get rid of being in a certain financial situation, or I want to get towards building wealth in a certain area, right? And the one aspect that helps us understand this a lot better is the hell, right? So the hell and heaven concept lets us understand better what's the hell that customers go through if they do not solve this issue or this problem, and what's the heaven that they experience once they have solved that issue, right? So right now, take a couple of minutes to write down what's the hell that your customers go through if they don't work with you, if they don't buy from you, if they don't register for your event, um, if they don't get your service, and so on. So just a couple more pointers here. What's so bad about people's situation if they do not buy from you? Will they lose out on opportunities? Will they lose their job? Will they lose out on promotions? Will they have to spend tons of money on like meds? Will they not find a partner and stay alone, right? And you might think, oh, well, I'm just selling a product, I'm just selling a service. This seems like a little bit far off. But I've seen it over the years is what people really buy is a lot more than a product or a service. For example, with the latest iPhone, the iPhone 17. Really thin. It's actually, that makes it more fragile. And the battery life also isn't really good. But people still buy it because it's a status symbol, right? And that status that people perceive it to buy them is worth to them a lot more than the $1,500 or whatever Apple is charging for it, right? So people always buy a product when they perceive that they're getting some sort of a deal for them that helps them avoid something or go towards something in the future, right? And it is our job as marketers or as product owners or as founders to help them understand what it is, because a lot of people understand that concept, but they are not really clear on the details. So the more detailed you can go in the hell, the better. All right. Once you have written down a couple of points for the hell, we're going to go to the heaven. And so here, similar as with the hell, but now the complete opposite. What is the heaven that people experience when they buy from you, engage with your services, and so on? For example, let's say I'm a travel agent and I'm selling cruises, right? So the heaven would be, I get to take the holiday of a lifetime. I get to realize a dream. I might get to tell all my friends about it. I'm probably going to feel really, really good and joyful when I buy this cruise or go on this cruise. I'm able to relax a little bit. I'm able to take holiday. I'm able to do something good for my family, right? So the more you can expand on that heaven, the better, right? So what will happen 1 year, 5 years, 10 years down the road? Again, for example, if we talk about losing weight, right? What will happen 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the road? Well, I'm going to look fitter. I'm going to live healthier. I'm going to need maybe less sleep. I'm going to be able to be more productive. I'm going to get more work done. I'm going to meet different people. Whatever it is that you see or you think that people could get as a result of investing in working with you or buying from you, list that down here. And the more you can write it out, the better. And a quick tip here that I want to share with everyone is the wheel of emotions. This is actually a tool from psychology, but it is fabulous. You can find it if you just Google it, and you will find a whole bunch of options, right? So what we can see here is it's literally a wheel that lists all kinds of emotions. And why is this important? This is important because the better you can describe the hell and the heaven of your potential customers, the better they will feel understood, right? So instead of just saying, oh, they're going to feel good or bad, we can say, well, without my solution, they're going to feel stressed out, overwhelmed, and unfocused. Once they buy from me, the heaven, 10 years down the road, they will still feel joyful, confident, respected, right? So this is a really, really great tool that you can Google. There's plenty of different options and versions for that in all kinds of languages, and very, very helpful when working on one's ads. Do you have access to ChatGPT or Claude or one of those tools? Because what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our favorite AI tool, and we are going to ask it to transform all that messaging that we have into Facebook ads copy in the PAS style. So the PAS style means problem, agitate, solution. And there are quite a few of those different messaging styles that one can have, but this has been by far the most effective one over the years. And you can just tell your favorite AI tool, hey, just use the PAS style. It will know what to do. And what this does, no matter whether you've written it down now on a PDF, on like pen and paper, take a picture, upload it, and then just ask it to transform that into the PAS style, right? And you can also ask it to give you a couple of options, right? So the cool thing really about AI is that you do not have to come up with all those things yourself. You just have to tell it what you want. What kind of style do you want? Who do you want to like mirror this, right? So I love using AI in terms of it being or assuming a certain persona, right? Where I say, hey, it is right now Russell Brunson, it is Tony Robbins, it is whoever I find inspiration from or get good content from. Sometimes I do this with like email newsletters as well, right? So I take the last like 10 email newsletters from somebody I'm following, I put it into ChatGPT or Claude, and I say, hey, based on that, please come up with my next 10 newsletters, right? And use the same structure. So it's now easier than ever to take what's out there, what we see is working, and then adapt it for ourselves, right? And of course, wherever you're watching this, you can put it in the comments, you can email it to me, and I'm more than happy to also give you feedback on that. Now, a couple of AI prompts to use later to kind of like take your ad copy game to the next level here, right? We could say, if you could add one more emotion to that post, what would it be? If you could add one more emotion to my hell, to my heaven, what would that be, right? You could say, write the highest converting ad copy based on this principle, right? Write the highest converting landing page copy, write the highest converting form copy, right? Checkout page copy. So you can literally tell it to do whatever your goal is, whatever you want. You could say, write ad copy that's persuasive and follows consumer psychology best practices, right? And you can try that out between certain tools. You can use Claude, you can use ChatGPT, you can use Gemini, and then see what these tools do and how they compete against each other, right? it can be very interesting to see how they can improve each other's versions, right? You'd be surprised how good it gets. And it doesn't take you a lot of time. Like all these things can literally be done in like 10 minutes, right? Or you can say, hey, give me 3 variations of headlines, descriptions, and so on. What we by now have started doing is we're saying, hey, come up with 5, 10, 20 different hooks that I can use. A hook is typically the opening line of a video, of an ad copy, and so on. And then based on that and based on the hell in heaven, write the post in the PES style for me, right? So that way you start off with the strongest point in the ad, which is the first sentence, and then obviously your image or your video. But you make everything else dependent on that, and you can also test that, right? So just a couple of ideas on how you can take that ad copy game to the next level with what you already got. Now, of course, let's go into a little message testing exercise. We oftentimes make things too complicated as human beings, especially in the beginning. Of working on our own businesses, or if we've never really done much of marketing, we tend to almost write the copy that sounds like an essay, right? But if it gets too complicated or too complex in terms of words, people are not going to use it, and people are not going to take any action, right? So there's a couple of like message testing exercises that I typically also let all my students run through in order for you to see, hey, does this ad copy actually make sense? So you're kind of like keeping yourself in check and giving yourself a little bit of a test here, right? So you can start off with the so what test, right? So you can ask your favorite AI tool, hey, does this ad copy or this landing page copy answer the question about why should they care, right? Why should they care about buying my product, signing up for my service, watching a training, and so on? How does it make life better for them, right? Then you can apply the clarity test, right? You can say, hey, can a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 20-year-old understand it? And this applies to audiences of any age, right? Because no matter how old we are, the simpler things are expressed, the better, right? Then we can ask about the uniqueness test, right? Could my competitor currently say the same thing? Is there anybody out there who could say the same thing? Or have I really managed to communicate something unique here? And last but not least, the evidence test, can you back it up, right? So are there studies out there that you can use? Maybe you've done your own research, right? Can you talk about a certain number of clients that have tested your product, that have signed up for your service? However you can say or show that there is social proof, the more meaningful an ad becomes for the client. All right, so we are getting back started with the power of testimonials and social proof. Now, while that might sound very simple, I've seen over the years that there is quite a little bit of science to it, and I hope I'll be able to break that down for you. Now, in general, we got 5 different types of social proof, actually. The first one is the classic customer testimonials that we know in terms of direct quotes from satisfied customers. The second one is reviews and ratings, like star ratings, public reviews, and so on. Then we get user statistics, so numbers of customers or users. We've had over 4,000 happy patients, over 7,000 patient treatments performed, over 500 happy customers, over X amount of users, trainees, and so on. Case studies, so this is where you break down detailed success stories always followed with some sort of what we just discussed, like hell and heaven framework. And then you have endorsements, right? So this is like influencer, expert approval. Imagine Instagram influencers, imagine classic, person in a white coat being a doctor saying this works. So any of those 5 work as social proof. Now, when we get social proof, there's also a structure to a high converting testimonial. Ideally, it states the before problem. What was my issue, my pain point before I encountered the service, before I encountered the solution, this product, and so on. The hesitation. A lot of times people hesitate, right? Sometimes people rather deal with like months or years of feeling overwhelmed, because this might be a feeling that they're used to, than changing to something that's better for them. So we want to understand better, why did they hesitate and how long did they hesitate? Maybe how much money did they spend while hesitating, right? Then the action that they took, right? So that would be to sign up for your service, sign up for your product, sign up for a course, and so on. The after state, right? So like the specific results that they got, and any kind of identity markers that your customers are comfortable with sharing, right? Obviously, the more images, names, details we use, the better, but that's not always possible, right? If you are working in an industry that might have certain ethical standards that you have to adhere to, obviously do all that within those standards, right? Now, once we have those testimonials, how do we actually showcase them in ads? Obviously, you would have them very prominently featured on your website. Ideally, I'd already want to see testimonials within just like one scrolling on your website, right? So it's right there. I have a little bit of social proof, and then you can have them on like separate pages as like a collection as well. We can use them in an ad copy, right? A short quote. So this is something that we love doing, whether it's Facebook ads, Google ads, you name it. Using short quotes from existing customer testimonials or reviews from Google reviews, Yelp, Trustpilot, and so on, right? You can always take out these snippets and use them in your ads. We can use them in ad images, right? To show statistics, to show ratings. One aspect that a lot of people tend to forget in those images is always add 5 golden stars or yellow stars, because those automatically tell our brain that, hey, this is a review, this is something good. So when you use a testimonial, also try to use those 5 yellow or golden stars. In video content, right, as like testimonial clips. So if there are images, that's great. If you can get video content, even better. On the landing page, right? And then, of course, in ad headlines, right, as numbers or results. I lost 10 kilos in the first 30 days, obviously heavily exaggerating here. I worked 10 hours less and was able to visit 2 more games with my children per week, right? We've helped X amount of people get rid of their allergies, whatever it is, right? So the more prominently used this, the better. And you do not have to put all this in one ad, right? So this is where multiple ads come in as well. All right, let's go to landing page best practices. So this is a short but important part that changes the outcome of any ad, because it's not just, unfortunately, not just anymore that, hey, we'll turn on our ads and our sales will skyrocket. That's just not the case anymore. We're dealing with a lot more competition, with a lot more information online. So we got to stand out, and we got to make it really, really easy for people to take the action that we want them to take. So typically we know that there's an issue with the landing page if people have been using ads, but they're saying, hey, I'm getting all those leads, but nobody's buying, or I'm getting all those visitors on my landing page and nobody's converting, right? So the first step that we want to take is we want to simplify our ads, well, our landing pages, the buttons on the landing pages specifically, I still see it often that people have 5, 6, 7, more than that, different buttons on their landing pages for the ads, and then expect people to just choose from those different buttons, right? But the problem is people are easily overwhelmed. So we've got to make it really, really simple for them, and ideally only give them one option. We'll get back to that in a second, because the one thing I want you to know and understand, and why we're doing this, is that more than 70% of conversions typically come from mobile. So people are on their mobile devices, especially with Facebook ads. You're interrupting their flow. They have not been in a moment of like, hey, I'm searching for your product or a solution, but they were probably just like scrolling, talking with their friends, catching up with family. So we got to make sure that it stands out. And when we already have that pattern interrupt, it is an easy and quick action for them, right? So, and this is also something we can check in Facebook Ads Manager in just a little bit. Now, with landing page best practices, you got to consider that people are lazy, right? So whenever we have an ad, we don't want to make them think, right? So let's assume we are having a lead gen campaign. And in that lead gen campaign, I would not even so much talk about the product that I'm selling, if it is for an e-commerce business, but I would talk about the thing that they get when they sign up for my email list. And typically in such an ad, we're not going to say, sign up for my email list. Typically, we would have something like a freebie, like a 10-step guide, a 3-step guide, a 5 secrets guide, a problem to solution story, right? And that's what people get when they sign up for that email list, right? Because we don't want them to think. We just want to say, hey, here is 5 quick tips to enhance your morning routine. Submit your email name and whatever else here, and then you can sign up, right? So, for example, with one of our healthcare clients, they got a 10 Chinese herbs guide. And in return for giving the first name, last name, email, I think date of birth and city or something, right? So you do not have to just stick with first name and last name and email. You can ask them to submit other pieces of details that are relevant to you. And even though those pieces of details might be a little bit more for them to fill out, it doesn't take that much longer, but it gives you more information and better quality leads, right? So with your landing page, before I jump too much ahead into lead gen ads, make it about them. Show me what's in it for me. Why should I buy it? How is this relevant to me, right? Now, a couple of best practices of mobile optimized landing pages, right? Show me the next step. Make it easy to take the next step for me, right? Whether that is, I just signed up for the email list, and now the next step is to watch a free training, right? Make it really, really easy for me to follow along. Okay, so let's look into Facebook campaign structures, and then we'll also go live into the account and go and get going with the campaign setup and optimization. In general, a Facebook campaign is set up with an objective that you set on a campaign level. So this could be lead generation. It could be generating traffic on your landing page. It could be getting calls. It could be engagement with your Facebook ads or your Facebook page, and so on, right? So we set the objective on a campaign level, and that's pretty much the most important thing we have to remember. And when we go through Facebook, it guides us in that process quite a bit. Then on the ad set level, we can have multiple ad sets in one campaign. So a lot of times a common mistake I see people make is they set up one campaign with one ad set and one ad. And then they want to create a new ad and they just create a whole new campaign and whole new ad set for that, which is not necessary. And it just creates confusion in the account. So we want to keep things really, really clean from the beginning, because you'll notice that over time, it'll help you maintain the overview and manage your ads a lot better. Now, on an ad set level, what does an ad set level have in common or share in terms of pieces of information? We define what the conversion is. So what's the action that we want our customers to take? Would it be to fill out a lead form? Would it be to make a purchase? Would it be to stay on the landing page for a certain time, to send us a WhatsApp message, to messages on Instagram? There's so many different options. We'll define the audience. So what kind of targeting audience are we working with? We'll define where our ads will show up: Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Messenger, or the audience network. And then we'll set the budget and schedule. Now, lately, Facebook has also been offering to set the budget on a campaign level. But in general, I recommend against doing that, because it's easier to manage the budget on an ad set level. So always keep it on an ad set level for now. And then within one ad set, we can have a whole bunch of different ads. And ideally, in each ad set, I want to see at least 16 to 20 ads to get started, if not more. In general, the more ads you test, the better, right? And you might be wondering, oh my God, it's 16 to 20 ads. How do I come up with these ads, right? The thing is, remember how I mentioned in the beginning that you can come up with, like, let's say 4 different hooks. So you already have 4 different ads with 4 different hooks. And then let's say you create 5 different stories for these 4 hooks, right? And then you have 5 different images. So you can mix and match them. And then very quickly, you're actually going to get to these like 20 or even more ads, right? And the reason we do this is because it's very, very difficult in the beginning to define what's working. There's a couple of best practices that can be applied, such as what we were discussing, like the different ad copy styles, the different hooks, different images, and so on. But what exactly works for which brand, that's something to figure out for almost every single company. So then on an ad level, we use images, we use videos, we use different landing page links that we like, and we can also define the format, right? Do we have vertical? Do we have square versions, horizontal versions, and so on, right? And this is just to keep in mind for now, but it's going to look a lot easier when we get into the account. Now, a couple of important aspects about the targeting options, right? In general, we can choose All right, I wanted to click on sharing a different tab and it kicked me out. So back here. So we have custom audiences, demographics, interests, behaviors, and devices. Custom audiences, we define them in the beginning. You might not necessarily work with them. It's just good to know that they are a pretty advanced way of targeting people. Demographics, pretty straightforward: age, gender. What else counts as demographics? Age, gender, location. Yeah, that's pretty much all the demographics. There's a couple of other aspects in the custom audiences part and in the interests part that we talk about. Interests, what people are interested in. Behaviors, what do they do? Are they frequent travelers? Are they Facebook page admins? Are they frequently spending money on mobile apps? And so on. Tons of different options out there. And then devices, right? Do they have an iPhone? Are they Android users? So there's a lot of different targeting options. And the good thing is you never have to know them by heart. You pretty much just look up which one fits. And we'll see how that works in a bit. We have placements. So 5 placements currently: Facebook, Instagram, Audience Network, Messenger, and Threads. Facebook and Instagram, fairly self-explanatory. Audience network is all the pages in the internet that Facebook partners with, where you can also see ads that you set up in Facebook. Messenger is Instagram Messenger or Facebook Messenger, whereas those mostly apply to, I would say, North America. I actually don't even remember ever seeing Messenger ads myself. So typically Messenger and Threads, we rarely include them in the placements because we've rarely ever seen any proper results from those. Now, very important to understand in terms of custom audiences and remarketing. So remarketing means you're targeting people who are already familiar with your brand. And familiar with your brand can be defined or described as they are on your email list, it's website traffic, they've visited your website before, they have engaged with your app if you have an app, there's been a certain kind of offline activity, which is mostly useful for physical stores, or they have engaged with your Facebook or Instagram page or posts of videos before, right? So for companies where it's easy to create video content, what they sometimes do is they create just video awareness campaigns where the goal is to get the video out to as many people as possible. And then I build a list of, let's say, everybody who watched the video for at least 10 seconds. And then those people are going to get really concrete ads with certain call to actions to do something. That's a way of warming up people, because we can never assume that when somebody sees your ad, they're going to buy right away. So now more than ever, what we see is that people, if one has never engaged with them in person, they need to be warmed up. They need to understand, what's your story? What are you about? Have people tried out your product? Are you going to be around? So the more you can build up that connection, the easier they will purchase from you later. And then, of course, we have the lookalike audience principle. So from an email list, from website traffic, and so on, we can build a lookalike audience. That means that, let's say we have an email list of 1,000 people, and we give that to Facebook, and we say, hey, please build a lookalike audience from that. That means Facebook looks for accounts on Facebook that are closest to those 1,000 people that you have on your email list in terms of interests, behaviors, and so on. So a lookalike audience can be a really, really efficient tool to discover new audiences without having to define them at first and just basing them off your customer data. So this is also where, for example, building up an email list can come in really, really handy, especially in the early stages of a business, because you can quickly use that data to then market off of that email list and give it back to Facebook in order to find other new relevant customers for you. Now, a very important principle for Facebook ads is, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And here's what I mean by that. When you see something is working, don't mess with it. If you see you getting a good cost per lead for a certain ad, don't pause it. Maybe increase the budget a little bit, but don't just try to move things around. Sometimes if campaigns are well set up, they can run for years at a time, right? So if one doesn't mess with it, right? Now, how do we actually choose an audience, and how do we know which audience to get started with? Ideally, we want to put similar interests in one ad set. So remember, one campaign can have multiple ad sets. So in one campaign, we can have one ad set that targets people 40 plus in and interests in high-end beauty brands. Another ad set could be women 40 plus that shop at certain high-value grocery stores. So if I'd wanted to advertise in Los Angeles, I would target people who'd shop at Erewhon, for example, because I know these people are ready to spend money, right? Or I could target people who have accounts with certain banks, right? I could target people who listen to certain podcasts. So what's really been working well for our clients is thinking in terms of complementary interests, right? Not just the classic audiences that show an interest exactly in what I do, but what else are they interested in? For example, for a massage salon, a running audience could be very valuable because runners often get injured, need massages and so on. So that would be a complementary interest to target. Or one of our clients in the Bahamas is a grocery delivery service. And for them, we target people who have shown an interest in like Airbnb or certain hotel brands, right? And these are things that obviously you don't always have to think about them yourself. You use AI, right, to explore it. Just ask AI, hey, this is my product. What could be complementary interests that I could target on Facebook? Or you could even take it a stage further and say, hey, what are complementary interests that like other brands have been using to target their customers, right? That, of course, also helps you identify winning audiences, because if you only use one audience, you will never know what really works, right? And so this is also one of the main reasons why most of our customers, if they've been running ads before, are able to reduce the cost per result by somewhere between 50 to 80%, because most of them haven't tried a lot of different audiences or ads. So we come in, we try it, and suddenly you're able to reduce the cost per lead, cost per purchase, and so on drastically. In general, aim for audiences that are above 1 million. And again, we'll see that in the ad set in just a second and where to spot that, and the supporting complementary interests. Now, real quick about best practices for ads before we get into the campaign creation. Use emojis, use ads without emojis, test it, test long versus short copy. A lot of people say, oh, but nobody reads long copy. The point with long copy is not always that people read it. The point is that we perceive more information as better. So if we see more information on a landing page, if we see more information in an ad, we automatically think, oh, I can trust this. There's a lot that's being said here, so this is probably okay. This is kind of like the subconscious thought process that people go through, right? But also in other times, long copy actually enables us to tell a story, to connect better with people. So I wouldn't always assume that people don't read it. I'd always let the data speak for itself and test it, because it doesn't cost more, right? You define the budget on an ad set level, and whether you have 10 ads, 20 ads, 50 ads in there, it's still the same amount of money that you spend on a daily basis. Have at least 9 to 16 ads per ad set, or even more, actually. Split up desktop, mobile, and Instagram. It's already an advanced move, but definitely do that if you have different experiences. And then stay away from blue or white images. The simple reason for that is because that's Facebook's logo. So, and it's Facebook's like platform colors. So any of the colors that you use are great, they stand out, but typically blue-white images are, rarely the best performing ones. Surprisingly, in like a new ad set that we've been testing for ourselves, a black and white image is performing really well. It was a very simple image. So always test it and let the data speak for it.